All right. Karl is going to be speaking today on the 7 deadly sins of AI in product design. So please welcome Karl to the stage.
I'm going to use the lab mic. Thank you. Cheers. Hi, Susan. Hey, everybody. How you doing? Okay, so I don't want this to be a lecture, so please feel free to ask questions. There's going to be a bit of like Q&A. Don't worry, I'm not going to make anyone like jog on the spot or anything like that, but definitely want to keep this like a little bit interactive as we go along. I'll give you like a formal introduction to me in like a few slides time, but just like an informal one. My name is Karl. Hi, everybody. I'm a behavioral scientist at Irrational Labs. I moved to San Diego about 4.5 years ago now. My wife convinced me to move here from Ireland. I say convinced. Doesn't take much convincing to move to San Diego, especially when you come from Ireland and you cycle home in the rain once or twice at 10 p.m. at night, and you're like, you know what, I'm done with this. So it's been fantastic. Absolutely love it. You know, one thing that I do miss from home is we kind of had like a bit of what I would call like an intellectual community going, and an Irish behavioral science network, similar to the San Diego Design Network. And so super curious to network with everyone, get to know some people. It's always nice to just meet with like-minded folk and chat nerdy stuff, right? So that's what I'm really hoping to do. So please come up and say hello afterwards. I should also preface that you'll see me kind of like hobbling around a little bit last night. I committed 2 of the sins I'm going to talk about at soccer last night, namely vanity and mediocrity, and sprained my ankle going in for a tackle that I should have known better about. But without further ado, let's jump in. We're going to talk about the 7 deadly sins of AI product design. And these are really just some heuristics to help you identify bad design patterns in AI products in particular. And then we're going to look, of course, at some antidotes to each of those deadly sins. Sound good? All right, awesome. So this is me. I'm standing right here. I don't need another picture of me. This is a little bit about Irrational Labs, who I work for. So we actually started our life as a behavioral economics research unit in Google over 10 years ago now. And then we kind of spun out and we're doing private design consulting for some of the biggest names in tech. We kind of work across fintech, health tech, and general kind of like big tech, I would say, is kind of how I would put it. We do a mix of qualitative and quantitative research. We've done over 100+ research studies. Not me personally, although at times it feels like I've done nearly about 100. But it's a great place to work, and super excited to share some of these insights that obviously I put together, but also had my colleagues' input as well. So you're getting kind of the whole brain trust of Irrational Labs throughout this talk. All right, I will be brief here because no one likes these speaker bio slides. I'm a behavioral scientist, I said that. Do a lot of work with big companies, used to advise government a lot, especially when I worked in Ireland. I worked in the public sector for a long time. My specialty at Irrational Labs is really looking at this intersection of AI and behavioral science. How can we use it to do better behavioral science? And how can we apply behavioral science to AI product design, which is, of course, what we're going to look at tonight. And then I have an MSc, just so you trust me, and I'm not like scamming you all out. Here's another social proof slide. We can skip that. Let's talk about these numbers for a second. So $307 billion investments in AI products estimated by IDC worldwide has been spent on designing and implementing and rolling out AI products. What are we getting for that money? Right now, potentially not a lot. Companies take your fancy of which number you like, right? You've probably heard of the MIT report that puts it at 95%. I would say maybe a little too high. The figure I'm using tonight from this report is 75% of projects fail to deliver ROI. Even if it's 60%, at the scale of investment that we're talking about, when we're in the hundreds of billions of dollars, this matters, right? Not just for the companies who are actually making these investments, but for the users, right? Because if you're not seeing a return on investment, chances are you're not adding value for your user. And so you're probably committing one or multiple of the 7 deadly sins. And if you can try and overcome some of those, then hopefully we can turn this story around a little bit by understanding human behavior and designing for humans, not AI. And what do I mean by that? I mean like really just some basic heuristics of things you shouldn't do and some things that you should do. So in terms of things that you shouldn't do, we shouldn't assume that people behave completely rationally, right? So it might be completely rational to sit down and look at an AI coding tool that's a little complicated, and you're expected, you know what, you should spend the next like 3 hours upskilling on this tool because once you do, the payoff is going to be huge. But people aren't rational, right? If the product experience is bad from even the first 10, 15, 20 seconds, they're bouncing. So instead, what we want to do is identify the different psychologies that are at play when people are interacting with these products and design our products to work with those psychologies, not against or in spite of those psychologies. I would say we want to try to avoid just trying to change minds. A lot of the times when we ask our clients, what do you want as a result of this project? They'll say, I just want people to think differently. I just wish people would change their opinion about X and Y. Nothing wrong with that. There is a space for that, but not as impactful as actually trying to solve for the behavior that you want, right? Changing people's minds, giving them information, doesn't necessarily change their behavior, right? I probably know I shouldn't go in hard on a tackle when I'm a 35-year-old guy with a kid on the way. That didn't stop me last night. Here I am with my sprained ankle, right? It's just a case of human nature. You really want to solve for the behavior. And this is to this last point as well. If you're thinking about, well, how can we solve this problem, right? People are struggling to use my AI product. Maybe I'll just give them more information. I'll send them to a training seminar. Or I'll send them out an email with kind of an onboarding experience. Okay, you could do that. Or you could change the decision environment, actually make the environment more likely to work with people. And that's really what we specialize in, is designing choice architecture, designing the kind of UX environment so that people are more likely to engage in the behavior that's beneficial for both themselves and the product provider. Make sense? All right, awesome. We're going to go kind of one by one through these sins. I'll give you a little intro to the sin. I'll show you some bad examples of where the sin has been committed, and then I'll talk a little bit about antidotes to how we overcome them. So the first deadly sin is one of neglect. And this is where you leave your users without guidance. So I don't know if you've ever stared at this Gemini prompt box before, just thinking, what do they want me to write in here? Like, what can Gemini do? What can it not do? Right? And it doesn't even have to just be Gemini. You can think of many AI tools that are like this. You come to the very first page, the headline on the page says something like, do anything with AI. And then you sit down and go, great, like what anything should I do though? And so really what you want to do instead, of course, and we're going to get to that, is give people a little bit more guidance, help them form the correct mental model about what your tool can and can't do and how they can go about doing that. How much should you try and give people though, right? Should you spoon feed them completely, or should you stretch them a little bit, or should you push them a lot? This is a question that psychologist Lev Vygotsky asked when he was trying to understand how people best learn. And let's keep it interactive here. What do you think is the best way to help users learn? Is it A, giving them complete freedom to just explore and figure things out on their own, like a kid playing with Lego? Provide detailed instructions for every single step in the process, like every piece of IKEA furniture you've ever received? C, offer just enough support to stretch their current abilities, then remove it as they grow? Or D, show them examples of what great performance looks like and expect them to replicate it? What do you think? Correct. Yes, you're all honorary behavioral scientists and psychologists as of right now. This is exactly right. He calls it the zone of proximal development. We learn best when we're given just enough scaffolding so that we can get started. And then we kind of remove some of those scaffoldings and help you build up skills. I don't know if you've ever used, there's like an open source version of Photoshop that does this really well. I'm blanking on the name right now. But they essentially start you in beginner mode and just hide a bunch of functionality from you. They say, look, if you can do these like 5 or 6 things, great. Now we're going to show you the 6th thing, the 7th thing, the 8th thing. But we're not going to show you straight away because that would just be overwhelming. And so this is what we talk about when we mean this zone of proximal development. So what can you do? How can you overcome this sin of neglect? Well, one way is to lower the activation effort. So you can see here up the top, Figma actually gives you some ideas about what your image could be, right? So Cinque Terre at sunset on a grainy film stock. Anyone notice what's good about this example prompt that's in the first box? Specific? Anything else? It's giving you a little bit of a mental model about what Figma's image makers can do, right? It's saying, you can give me a topic, Cinque Terre, you can tell me a bit more about that topic that I want it to be at sunset, and you can give me a style, right? You can say, on a grainy film stock. When you review what people type into these prompt boxes, what you find overwhelmingly is that 1, people write too little, usually. There's kind of a sweet spot. If you give too much information to an AI and take up a lot of the context window, it gets clogged up and it can't do its best thinking, right? But if you don't give it enough, it doesn't know what you want. And so what you're trying to do with these kind of suggestion prompts, you're trying to lead people towards, look, give us a little bit more detail. That's better than too little. And also give us these type of details so that the user can form a mental model of like, okay, these are the type of things I should be specific about. Another way to do this is to scaffold with interactive walkthroughs. Does anyone here use Whisper Flow? Yes, yeah. You want to sing its praises for a second? No, okay. I don't work for Whisper Flow, so say what you want. I'd say I'm at the same stage, yeah. When I'm writing a super long prompt, I'll use it. But just for those who don't know, it's just an incredibly accurate voice-to-text model. That's really good for when you're writing like a long prompt that you want to give to an LLM. Sitting there typing, it just takes a lot of time, right? So what Whisper Flow does is gives you a very simple action. You just press Control and Windows, I think it is, on Windows, and it will start dictating into the box that you're currently selecting in. And this is incredible. And what they do during their onboarding is really nice. They build this mental model really in a simple way. They say, we're going to actually have you respond to a chatbot. So it'll ask you something like, hey, what are you working on right now? Or how are you finding this onboarding experience? And you actually have to do and use the tool exactly as you would. You have to click the buttons and give your answer in voice to text. You see that work, and then it says, okay, great. Next thing we're going to teach you is that Flow actually does things like understands where punctuation should go based on kind of the rhythm of your speaking, the formats that you might want when you start listing things. It knows you probably want bullet points, and fixes mistakes. And so it asks you to write a sample email with it and then does all of those things. And this is really smart, right? This is part of setup to make sure that your mic works and all of that, but it's giving you the mental model so that when you arrive on day one to use it, you're not neglected. You have an idea of what to do. Another thing to do here is to refer to past behavior. And this is particularly the case when users are going to likely come back to your AI product over and over again, right? You'll see that all of the large language model providers now have done this with like chat history, for example. But Headspace did this in an even nicer way. Ebb is like a partner that helps you think about mindfulness or identify meditations that might be useful based on things that are stressing you out in your life. And what they do is they actually reference back to what you were talking about last time. So they say, look, welcome back. It's great to see you again. Last time we talked about your upcoming podcast recording and how you're feeling a little bit unprepared with multiple projects. What's on your mind today? This is doing two things. One, it's informing the user, we will remember what you tell us, and we can use that to give you continued advice, right? It's also important in a kind of mindfulness, and I wouldn't go as far as to say therapy, but therapy like adjacent space, right? Where it's actually showing you that it's listening to you by reflecting back what you talked about last time. Okay, any questions about neglect, or anyone have like a favorite example of neglect that they're really annoyed by before we jump into the next sin? Yeah. Yes, I could not agree more. Yeah, like when you go to a help section, right, there's like 4 or 5 like drop downs, or there's like different buttons to click through, like come here if you're having like a business issue, or come here if you're like a customer, or like a consumer rather than a business. And when you get to a chatbot, it's like, especially like banking chatbots are guilty of this all the time, right? It's like, hi, I'd like to send money to someone. It's like, oh, I can't do that. Okay, hi, I'd like to check my balance. Oh, I can't do that. And what can you do? So it is important to set those expectations correctly, and that's another one of the sins that we'll look at. Okay, so obscurity then is hiding powerful features in plain sight. So let's play a little kind of almost a version of Where's Wally? First person to spot the AI tool in this next image gets a prize, and that prize will be a high five because I don't have a prize with me. Okay, where's the AI tool? Where's the AI feature? Rufus. Okay, great, awesome. Okay, we have some like power users of Amazon here. It's hard to spot though, right? Like here it is when I zoom in on it, but like if I bring you back here, it's not what's drawing your attention, right? Like all the products are. That's probably right? You're coming to Amazon to do one of two things: search for what you already want, or to get some idea of things that you might want based on your past behavior. But look, if you're Amazon, you've spent all this money building a smart shopping assistant, you've gone through the effort of branding it, calling it Rufus, hiding in the top left corner where no one's going to find it, maybe a bit of a sin. Zapier here gives us an antidote to this problem. Zapier makes their AI functionality the first thing that you land on. So once you log in, they basically have replaced, you usually would have started from that start from scratch section that you can just see below where you can say, I want to use a Zap, I want to use a table, an interface. And now instead when you land here, it's like clear, no, what would you like to automate? Here's a prompt box. And this makes it the first thing that a consumer is going to notice and more likely that they're going to use this AI tool. Similarly, you can meet users where they already are. So Grammarly has a really well-known feature for suggestions, and it always lives in like the bottom right-hand corner of your screen, just kind of like floats there over whatever app that you're using. And what they did was they just added all the rest of their AI tools there. Makes sense, right? It's where people go every time they're expecting to use Grammarly. Just put it there. It's easy and discoverable where people already are. All right, any questions about obscurity before we go on to gluttony or any hot takes on it? Yeah.
So a problem we face in the instances where I'm asking for AI and products is the AI is very limited, but they want to make it very cool.
Yes. Yep. Yeah. I mean, I think that's interesting, right? I would probably argue that if you're to the point where you're hiding it, then it's probably not ready for showtime, right? But I also do understand the pressures of like investors and so on who want to show, hey, we're in this space, we're doing AI. The next in mediocrity, we're going to cover a ton of ways to try and address this. Yeah. Okay, let's have a look at, or yeah. This one?
So this, it's really small, right?
Mm-hmm.
I guess it's functional enough to be small. It's not invasive. So is that the reason that you're saying this is good design? As instead, because in Rufus, you had it in the corner, it was really smart, and this one is also
Great question. So with Rufus, I think the difference is that where do people go every time they come to Amazon? The top search box, right? It's near there, but it's not like in there, and it's still hard to see, and it's not like in your focal attention spot when you're looking for the search bar. The difference with Grammarly is that when you're using Grammarly, this is like the mode that they teach you, like even before they had AI-powered products. This is how you use Grammarly. You came down, you click this button, and then it would like work on the document or the website or whatever you were doing. And so I guess the difference is like the customer or the user already has an ingrained habit of where they're going, and you're just meeting them there. But it's a fair point. Yeah. All right, we're going to have a look at gluttony, and this is where you overwhelm users with too many choices. So if we look at a study to just understand why this is important, it actually doesn't take a lot of choice to start to cause confusion and choice overload. There are exceptions to this rule, I will point out, but generally speaking, you want to have a sweet spot of around like 2 or 3 choices, depending on kind of your user. If your user's an expert, you might want more. But this comes from a study of internet choice, and what they looked at is basically, well, how likely are people to defer any choice, to just basically bail on switching their internet service provider based on the number of choices you provide? And you can see clearly here from the results, right? 2 to 3, not that much of an impact. It's a small one. And if anything, maybe you might even see a conversion win there because people have enough choice. Maybe there's enough differentiation between the product. But once you go to 4, we've jumped up by 17% of people just neglecting to choose at all. And so sometimes we think more choice is better. It's going to allow them to find the thing that works perfectly for them. But a lot of the time what actually happens is they just say, you know what, this choice is too hard. I'm out of here. I'll do it later, or I just won't come back. Not to pick on OpenAI all night, but this is really bad. They have fixed this since, to be fair to them. But I don't know if you remember this, like right before before GPT-5 came out. Like this was how you selected models in GPT. Like, yeah, anyone want to call out what's wrong with this? There's so much. Too many options, absolutely. Anything else? A lot of overlap, right? Like How do I know? Best at reasoning, uses advanced reasoning. Which one should I choose then? There's like maybe a little bit of help with like great at coding and visual reasoning, but you're also making this choice really hard. You're forcing me to make trade-offs. What if I want something that's good at visual reasoning and I want something that's good at like something else, like writing, right? What do I do now? I have to like not pick a model. It's just very confusing. So yeah, having a lot of choice causes a lot of different problems. Claude and Anthropic overcame this by just reducing the number of choices. So they just said, look, we're going to give you two main choices, basically a super powerful model that might take like a little bit longer to reason, and a smart and more efficient model that will like help with your everyday tasks. And look, if you want all the rest of the fancy stuff, no problem, but it's in the sub menu in more models. ChatGPT fixed it themselves, right, by just doing default model. So they said, we're going to default you to the model based on your prompt. We're smart enough to know whether this is something that requires like advanced reasoning or not. Yeah. Yeah, they sure did. Yes, yes. And we'll talk about that. Like another sin that's in this deck is tyranny, which is removing the user's choice. Defaults don't remove the choice, but they're very heavy-handed. Yeah. You had a question, I think?
Is having choice more powerful than having a recommendation? I know
Mm-hmm.
have one recommendation. This is why we chose this one.
Yes.
But the power of choice is a lot more.
I think recommendations are really powerful, particularly when you've asked the user what they want, right? Or they've had a chance to tell you in some way. And then you can say, oh, well, based on you've done this. So like, actually Claude will do this from time to time where you'll do a series of prompts and you're not getting the result that you want. And it will say, you know what, why don't you use advanced reasoning? And it will say, we're recommending this based on the prompts that you just gave us. So yeah, I would say like, as long as you know what you should recommend, then a recommendation can be powerful because it just helps the user. Yeah, 100%. Okay. Another way is exactly what I was just saying, actually, just set my own slide. So there you go. Yeah, Claude will kind of interject from time to time and say, oh, based on what you're asking for, I would recommend this. All right. This is going to be a big one. It's going to take like a few minutes for me to get through. I have so many slides on this because, and to your question earlier on, this is a big issue, right? There's so much pressure to put AI products out there and to get them out in front of consumers, and they're not always showtime ready, right? And so we're going to deal with that here. This is the sin of mediocrity where you're violating the user's expectations about what your AI can do. So this theory of like expectation confirmation, basically there's a ton of research that shows like being honest and saying, my tool can't do everything, but it can do these things really well, is way better than promising everything and then failing to deliver that, right? So if you go in with the expectation of this like super powerful like Iron Man type robot and you get the sad little robot from like the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, you're going to be pretty annoyed, right? So it's better to be honest with users and to help them understand what your AI product is good at and what it maybe is not good at. Yeah.
Do you think that's because people use Gemini, ChatGPT, so their expectations are high? It's the same kind of
Yeah.
20%.
That's a great question. That's a great question. I hadn't thought about that before. I would say it would have to be, right? Like if your mental model of what AI can do has been formed by literally the best models in the world, then yeah, then you come and try to do like your banking app or whatever else, and either it's built on a older model or it's been guardrailed so heavily that it actually can't do anything anymore. I think you're probably right. I mean, I think Pew put out research recently that said like 63% of Americans have used AI in a given week recently. But you can imagine that some portion of that 20, 30% are like power users. And for those, I'd say you're probably right. Yeah.
I was going to compare when I go.
Yeah. Right. It's like, whoa, we're back in the past again? Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, so someone who committed this sin in a big way was, I think, Apple with the promises of Apple Intelligence, right? If you remember all the marketing around WWDC, it was like, we're going to have Apple Intelligence. You're never going to have to read your emails anymore. We're going to summarize them all for you. Siri's going to be a genius. And then they were like, what month is it, Siri? And Siri's like, I don't know what you're saying. What? Sorry? And here's some like cool interactive emojis. And for me, like, I just want Siri to not make me want to crash my car when I'm driving down the highway and just get the right song the right time. Right? So this is definitely a sin that you can commit very easy, and that can break a lot of trust because people get very frustrated when you promise them this and give them this. All right, question time. According to the IKEA effect, when do people value a product more? Would you say it's when they get a good deal, when it's recommended by experts, when they help build it or shape it, or when they ate Swedish meatballs before checkout? C, I mean, I wish it was D. Yeah, absolutely. When they help shape or build it. Why is that? I think it's because people feel more ownership over the thing that they've helped create, right? And so there's some research here around AI image generation. So you could just have a situation where you have the user write a prompt and then just give the results and just say, here you go, there's the results, off you go. Or you could have a situation, which is what you'll see a lot of the LLMs do now, which is you ask for something and the model will come back first and say, oh, do you want this or do you want that? And when you say this, like, do you mean that? And then you say, oh, actually, I want this, or actually, I want to change that. I'm thinking like maybe more of like a sepia filter. I'm feeling my Instagram vibes from like early 2000. And when you do that, when the human feels like they're more in collaboration with the AI to generate the image, their satisfaction is higher. The perceived value of that same output is higher. And they also say that it's more likely that people will then understand its capabilities and that they're aware it's AI generated. So these are all good things. They're more comfortable and willing to use your AI when they understand what it can do, when they're involved, and when they know that what you're doing is an AI generated process. Google Image FX does this really nicely. So when you write prompts, it will then actually kind of open these chips on your prompt and allow you to change those and suggest things in the dropdown. So like you wrote Tranquil Secret Garden, then you can click on Tranquil and say busy or something else, right? And it's doing two things. One, it's helping you co-create, and that's great. We already talked about the IKEA effect. That should increase your perceived value. But again, it's building a mental model, right? It's showing you all the parts of the prompt that you could change to get a slightly different image if the one you got is not something that you're happy with. Another way to overcome this problem of mediocrity is why justifications. So when you're giving a recommendation, in particular with a chatbot, you want to try as much as possible is provide the why. And what do I mean by that? Explain why this recommendation is being made to this user. What is it that led the AI to actually make this particular decision for this particular user? And so you can see an example of this on the left. I recommend this movie because it has higher user ratings and matches your favorite genres, right? You could even go even deeper. I'm recommending this because you watched such and such the other day and then you wrote it or you ranked it highly. Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, hallucinations are certainly a problem, right? And they're getting less frequent, and I would say maybe a little less egregious, but they still happen. You know, the jury is still out onto whether that's a problem that can even be solved, right? Or it's just a nature of the generative way that AI works, right? So I don't know if that's ever going to be a solved problem. Obviously, as much as is possible, you want to avoid it. So we built a chatbot for a customer, what can I say, like a hotel chain. And what we did in the system prompt when we were doing is we said, look, you want to ask the user these questions and then reflect their answers back to those questions when you give your recommendation. And then importantly, we also said, never base your recommendations on this, and this. And so like in your system prompt, when you're like actually designing your chatbot, you can do that. You can give it a little bit more guardrails and say, these are the things you should base recommendations on. These are the things that you should not base recommendations on. But hallucinations may be always going to be a problem. Another way to kind of solve this then is to increase operational transparency. So to have the AI explain what it's thinking, what it's recommending, and why. So this here is from Replit, and it does a really nice job. You say something like, oh, I'm still seeing both texts. I'm still getting that error. It says, I see the issue. Let me check the current state and find where both titles are still appearing. And then it says, okay, here's what I'm going to do. Here's like the changes that I'm recommending we make to fix the error. And that gives the user more operational transparency to understand what the AI is about to do. And then you should be happier with the output, right? Because it's not unexpected. You have a chance to say, yes, please do that thing that you just said you're going to do, or no, what are you talking about? Please don't do that, do this other thing. And this goes to another study that really looks at people really want to have the ability to catch and correct mistakes. So it's better to like have the AI stop and say, oh, did you mean this? Or do you want me to do it that way? Or what do you think of the last thing that I did? Like, should I do it more like this or more like that? Some people would say like, oh, well, you're burdening the user, right? Like you're asking them all these questions, or you're admitting that you don't know the answer like straight off the bat. Like, isn't that bad? I would say no. Like, it's better to confirm and give users the ability to do that, because then they will rate it more highly. They'll say, oh, I feel a sense of control, right? Perceived control when people use systems is super, super important, right? And this increases perceived control. So another way to do that and to improve your AI over time is to invite structured feedback, right? And so you can use easy signals like thumbs up, thumbs down, right? Just for like really quick stuff, and that can help train the model. And then you can do more detailed feedback like, well, it wasn't wrong because of this, 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 and this, or even like sometimes a free text response box, depending on what level of product development that you're at. One more on mediocrity. One thing to do, and this comes back to your point, I think, about like when you're kind of trying to hedge the fact that like it can do some things, but it might not be good at others, is to actually show that and say things like, I can help you with any problem related to hotel reservation. However, I just started my job and still need to improve my capability, right? Framing the bot as something that's like under development. Even better, be more specific, right? Say like, oh, I'm really good at like finding you a room rate, but I can't help you with booking right now. These type of things, like outlining clearly what it is good at and what it's not bad at, and what it is bad at, and also setting expectations correctly with a message like this. Like, I think what's interesting is about chatbots, you would never write on your landing page, hi, our product's really good at this, but it's kind of terrible at this, right? It's a weird thing to write on your landing page, and marketing would be like, what are you doing? Chatbots are not really the same though, right? They're more conversational. Like, people will ask totally wild and different things that you can't fully predict. And so it is okay. Like, users should have the mental model of like, there are things that you're going to ask this thing that it can't do. And so one way to do this is to like humanize AI's mistakes and just call out that they're going to be mistakes. So here you can say right down the bottom, Gemini can make mistakes, so double check it, right? Did that give you any sort of answer that was useful? Okay, good, I'm glad.
I needed help from YouTube.
Yeah.
Well, I did that.
Okay.
And then at the end, after repeating a couple of times, same exact thing, he finally realized, oh, okay, I cannot really help you, but like. So I was very like, okay, you're very frustrated because you repeated the same thing over and over, but at the end, you finally do a real person. Right?
Yep.
So they say, it was still trying, but I don't know. So maybe
That's true. Yeah, you can get a bad agent and just be unlucky. Right. I mean, there's a couple of different ways to handle that, right? Like, so one is, I don't know, I haven't looked at that YouTube experience, but like, did they tell you up front about like, hey, we can do these things in chat, but we can't do these things? Yeah.
They said a few things, but they were not very specific about what they
Yeah, so I would say obviously that's one thing you want to do. Another is like set the expectation that if we don't handle your issue correctly, we will transfer you to an agent, right? Not just randomly then drop saying, oh great, we failed, so here you get an agent now. Like tell users like, look, try. If we solve your issue, great, everybody wins. If we don't, we will transfer you to an agent. Yeah. Yourself? Yeah. Oh, I'm trying to remember now. I think it's a BBC study. It's about news. I'll get it afterwards for you. But yes, there are like, for example, you can have agents fact check stuff, right? So like instead of just giving an answer straight away, you can then say, you can have the first LLM write, or the first agent, let's say, write the response. Then you have another LLM check that. You can even have another one fact check that fact check. Stuff like that helps. And certainly there are studies looking at like putting confidence estimates on things does increase people's trust in them. And importantly, increases like their appropriate level of skepticism. So I think like, the danger is like to this other point, if your AI is not ready for showtime and the true error rate, like it's hallucinating all the time and you're only going to solve the problem 30% of the time, slapping transparency and that's not going to solve that problem. But if you're up in the 70s, then yeah, transparency can help. Yeah. Okay. Vanity. So me at soccer, flaunting the label, not the value. What do I mean by this? This is when companies just do this thing of slapping like, this is AI. This is AI powered. Like this is the most like in general intelligence. I had another example in here about like Samsung about fridges. I'm like, why does my fridge need AI? Like it's just my fridge, just keep things cold. That's all I want you to do. But Instagram and Meta do this actually throughout their products, right? They obviously invested a lot of money in Llama. And so some per product designer was probably told, hey, put this in here, ask Meta AI or search. Ask it what? Ask it what? What should I ask it? Like, and I'm in Instagram, I'm in my DMs. Like, what do I want to ask an AI about my DMs? I don't want your AI looking at my DMs, right? So like just slapping AI on a product without considering what the use case actually is, what the value add is for the user, usually not a great idea. And just to prove the point, we did run a study on this. So at Irrational Labs, we ran a study where we randomly assigned people to see different products that are very similar. One would have an AI label, the other did not. And then we measured people's willingness to pay for those different products. And what you can see here is that there's virtually no difference, right? This difference is not statistically significant. People do not have an increase willing to pay just because you said this thing has AI, right? Great. I don't care about that. I care about my problem. I care about the outcome. I care about the connection I'm trying to have with this person. I don't care about the fact that you've just labeled it AI. Slide design, but that's fair. Yeah.
Whether AI with an interface versus just like power users doing a search with fields, whether AI would actually add value.
Mhm.
And I found overwhelmingly power users don't want AI because they know how to use the tool to a degree that they would feel like it would slow them down. So
right.
It not only may not add value, but actually increase value for certain users.
Yeah, I think so. Like breaking established habits and patterns where like your power users are like, I know the menus, I know this. A really like banal example of this is like in Google Slides when they brought in the generate button, they pushed I think it's the new slide button like down 4 places. And like as a someone who makes a lot of slides, it's like please don't do that. Like and I have to learn like the total new place where my slide button was. So I agree. Yeah.
Working in fintech, I know
Yeah.
when we started launching AI, we took a poll and a lot of people didn't feel comfortable leveraging AI, especially when it came to their personal finance.
Sure.
I'm curious, over time, has that trust grown? Because it seems like here people are more comfortable with AI, but I'm curious, does it depend on like the data that we're working with, personal versus?
Yeah, I think it's always going to depend on the context for sure. And then it's also going to depend on the actual design and how you do or don't reassure the user. I would say that, I'm not going to remember it right now, but that Pew study does also track trust in AI over time and with different domains like finance and health and so on. I would bet you big money right now that the line is just doing this, like going up and up, because it's just a familiarity thing as well, right? It's like when we had machine learning models doing personalized recommendations. Like there's a lot of people were like, oh, this is kind of creepy. And don't get me wrong, there's still creepy ways of doing it. Like being too specific will freak people out. I don't know if you've ever done that thing in ChatGPT where you say, draw a picture based on my life. Have you ever done this? Do it with caution. So like if you chat to ChatGPT a lot and like go home tonight and draw a picture of me and my life, it will be scary accurate. It knows a lot about you. And so, yeah, how you disclose that, when you disclose it, I think like it also depends on what they expect to happen, right? It's like, okay, I'm trying to do financial analysis of my bank statements to cut down my spending. Sure, AI can have access to my bank account for that purpose because how would you do it without it? I want to know what like the best donut shop near me is. Oh, we need your financial spending data. It's like, no, you don't. Like you're not getting that. So it's context dependent. Right. Exactly. So how do you overcome this problem of like vanity, just slapping the AI label on things? Like lead with the outcomes, right? Like lead what people care about. This is Superhuman, a really good product that helps you make your inbox way more efficient. And you can see this here, right? Save 4 hours per person every single week. No mention of AI there. If we go into the subtext, Superhuman is the most productive email app ever made. Collaborate faster and get more done with AI native email. So great, AI's in there. Investors are happy. Marketing's happy. You're getting AI in there. But you're not leading with it, right? You're leading with what the user actually cares about, which is my inbox is crazy and I wish someone would just help me with it. Loom AI does this nicely as well. They highlight really tangible and concrete benefits. So you can see even here they're doing it in context. They're saying your video title instantly created. Again, as someone who uses a lot of Looms, I really appreciate this. It analyzes what you've said in the video and suggests a title for you. It also clearly delineates all the other things it does for you. Provides auto summaries, auto chapters, auto tasks, filler word removal. Where is the word AI there? Once at the top, introducing Loom AI, but we're going straight into like, why would you care about it, right? It's not just Loom AI and nothing else. It's really focusing on the features and what benefits you get as a result of that AI being applied. Someone had a question earlier about like defaults and like control and so on. This is the sin of tyranny. You do not want to strip away a user's agency, especially not completely, and even just being very heavy-handed, particularly with decisions that people are likely to feel are high stakes, usually not a great idea. This, if you've ever run into it, is so annoying. Like, I love Claude, I love Anthropic, and like a lot of the things that they do, but I wish they would just warn me before I'm about to hit my usage limit. Instead, you're prompting, you're in the middle of a conversation, you're building a prototype, whatever you're doing, and then it'll just say, oh, sorry, your usage limit is reached, so you can come back at like 12, right? And as like a busy consultant, I'm like, guys, like this is due at 10, like what are we talking about here? So giving users more notice, right, would obviously be one thing that would help here, but more generally, the lesson is taking away users' control is likely to leave them feeling dissatisfied and annoyed. So the obvious answer to this problem is to give users more control. And Otter AI does this really nicely. So they just use a simple statement to say, look, you're going to get automatic meeting notes, but you're in control. Otter will join. What would you like it to join? Scheduled Zoom, Google, Microsoft meetings, meetings where you're the host, external meetings, internal meetings, like you're in control, you can do it. And you get a similar drop down for who the notes get shared with, right? And they're probably the two most things you're concerned with, right, when you're using an AI transcription service is like, when are you transcribing what I'm saying? And where do those transcriptions go afterwards? Another way to deal with this problem is to give users the ability to accept, reject, or change output. So rather than just saying like, here you go, we're not doing anything else for you, like, there you go, that's your result. Like allowing users instead to actually go back in and accept, reject, or change that output is nice. So this tool, Enhance V, it's basically like a resume kind of builder and corrector. Like it will go in and help you spot areas of weakness in your CV, but it gives you suggestions that you can then say, yes, I do want you to change that line, or no, actually regenerate whatever it is that you want to do. It's putting you in control of your CV. Sorry, I say CV still, I mean resume. Canva does this in a different way, which is it just says, probably going to make a mistake, right? At some point, either the AI will make a mistake, you'll ask for the wrong thing, or actually you just want a slightly different design. So they just make it really easy to go back to what you had before. So you're kind of like 70% happy with something, you make a little prompt, it changes, now you're like, wait, I hate this, great. Just a really simple undo button Great way to just handle issues. All right, this is the last sin before we can go into like a Q&A. And this is the sin of envy. This is when your AI product is just following the crowd and not the actual user's needs. You're designing just to be like in the race and copy what your competitors are doing. In kind of organizational psychology, this is called mimetic copying, which is instead of looking at your unique user's needs and designing for that, you're just looking at and saying, oh my God, everyone else is launching an AI feature. Like, what are they doing? I'll just copy them. That's great. I'll just put it into my product and boom, hopefully that will be good enough. And this happens in these environments for that reason, right? When organizations feel under pressure, when they feel like they're behind, this is when it's more likely to happen. Do I need to say any more? Like, look at every interface that you use from a major LLM provider. It is the exact same. You can say there are some benefits to this, right? Don't get me wrong. Like an established mental model that everyone has that they come to when they use your tool. Great, you don't have to teach the user again. But at the same time, you're losing the opportunity to differentiate from a business strategy perspective, and you're losing the opportunity to actually deliver on your users' unique needs because of what you know that they're there for because they've come to you. Yeah.
What's an example of another design that would add value compared to what the typical ChatGPT interface is?
I'm glad you asked. This is Google Whisk, and so they do image generation very differently. They say instead, you give us reference images, so instead of like prompting, give us reference images of the type of things that you want, and you can do this for multiple parts of the image. So who do you want to be the subject? What's the scene it's in? And what type of style do you want us to copy? And then you can layer a little bit of prompt language on top of that as well. But it's a totally different approach, right? Like every other provider, even like Nano Banana right now, the main or the default, should I say, kind of user interface is write English or should I say, write language into a box and tell us what you want. And Google FX or Whisk completely breaks this and says, no, give us reference images and we'll go from there. Another way to do this is just to create totally new opportunities. I absolutely love this feature. Like, if anyone here works at Google, like, go find the person who built Notebook LM and please tell them, like, I love them. This allows you to upload basically anything you want into LM Notebook and create a podcast out of it. So I use it for keeping on top of research papers. So I'm going to go on a run or something. I just drop a research paper into Google LM Notebook. 2 minutes later, I have a personalized podcast explaining that paper in detail. And it's awesome. There are like 2 hosts. They have real like actual kind of nice voices. They speak in like a normal cadence. It doesn't sound like a bot. And they always cover the main points in papers that I give them. So just doing this, like trying to think, actually, what would be a different, better output format than just a bunch of like a wall of text at the end of my LLM? It's worth thinking about. And they are the 7 deadly sins. They are neglect, obscurity, gluttony, mediocrity, vanity, tyranny, and envy. I hope to absolve you of most of them now and giving you some antidotes. Thank you so much for your attention and interaction. I'm happy to take any questions.
If you guys have questions, I'm going to bring the mic to you. So just raise your hand.
This was awesome. Thank you. Really appreciate it. I'm specifically working on a voice agent. It's going to be primarily conversational. I was wondering if you can touch on perhaps how these deadly sins or any of your direct experience with the exposure you've had to different AI tools and obviously voice being a major modality in which people are interacting with these tools. Any insights for us on voice agent?
Yeah, there's a super interesting study about truckers. And so like if you're, think if you're like the logistical parent company for truckers, right? And you have to like call in and check like where, or maybe not even check where, but we need this change to the route or whatever. So a lot of overhead for the trucking company, right? And they said, we're going to replace the logistic callers with a voice AI instead. What they found is that like a lot of frustration and just a lot of not like trust from the truck drivers. So 1, they were like less happy with it, and 2, they didn't trust it as much. Partially, that was just because it spoke so robotically. It just like didn't pause. It didn't say, oh, I'm not sure, but let me check, and all of these things. It was either hyper confident or just like speaking like robo voice. And And so I'll send you that paper if you find me afterwards. But super interesting, a bunch of insights about like what you want. And some of the other points I think are still true, right? So like depending on what your voice assistant is doing, you still might want to do things like provide why justification. So I'm telling you this because you said X, Y, and Z. So I think some of those lessons can still be applied even if the modality is just voice. Yeah. Yeah.
Thanks so much for this framework.
Yeah, absolutely.
I am a little concerned about telling my stakeholders that they've violated like 3 sins, like that,
Sure.
where this leaves me.
Yeah.
Any thoughts about taking it in that direct, like taking this home with us in that way, and how we can productively use this framework to have conversations with our stakeholders?
Totally, yeah. Like, yeah, the 7 deadly sins, probably not the way you want to present in the boardroom, right? It gets attention, fills rooms, but not in the boardroom. I think emphasize the effectiveness, right? Like a lot of, and tell stories in particular about that, right? So like I shared a couple of studies in this deck, for example, like tell those stories and try and find both stories in your own product, right? Like I'm sure if you're doing any level of monitoring of what your AI is doing, you will be able to find instances where it's done something really well, and you will be able to find instances where it's really bad, particularly if you can link that to like voice of the customer type feedback, and then just tell that story, right? Say like, okay, here are 2 customer situations. They're ostensibly the same. The AI did this one time, they loved it. The AI did this the other time, they hated it. What does that tell us about it? How should we change the product? Yeah.
Can I just ask you,
Sure.
what's an example of an exceptionally good AI application that you think is kind of accepted from the 7th?
Oh my gosh, that is a super hard question. Like, that commits like almost none of the sins. I'm just trying. I'm just trying to think of like an AI tool that I like love, which is a slightly different answer. I have to think about it. I mean, like the problem, not the problem, but like the thing about this framework is a lot of product will commit at least one of these sins at some point. And so trying to pick like a product that is like, let's say, as sin-free as possible. Let me think about it. I'll come back to you. Yeah. Yeah, please.
So I'm an engineer, right?
Yep.
So as an engineer, I want control
Yep.
over systems.
Mm-hmm.
So when I have a simple application that doesn't give me control, I get frustrated.
Mm-hmm.
But someone who just wants to get an output
Mm-hmm.
or a particular output from a product and sees the variety of elements,
Mm-hmm.
they get overwhelmed.
Mm-hmm. So
it's the principle of if you want control, you have to deal with complexity. If you want simplicity, you have to give up control.
Sure.
So in a way, is there a decision making in the product design as to what is the level of control they want to give?
Yeah, I think so. I think like lots of different ways to come at this, like advanced mode, beginner mode. The Claude example where we're going to show you 2 models by default, but if you're a power user and you want the rest, no problem. If you use ChatGPT in the early days, you could do way more than you could do from the prompt box if you went into settings and then went into like, you could change the system prompt. You could turn up and down the temperature of like the LLM. So it was either like more generative or more like, or less generative in terms of like the level of randomness in its response. So I think, yeah, there's definitely ways to do that. But I'll come back to you on your other question. That's a tough one. Like, what's like the perfect AI product? Yeah.
Have you used the Microsoft Office Copilot stuff? Do you have a take on how they're falling under these sins?
I think that I have not used Copilot enough to fully answer that question. I would say with the difference with here's what I'll say about like embedded AIs in general, right? So this applies to Copilot. It includes Gemini in Google Slides. For me, the biggest problem with those tools is not that they're not powerful, they are, but they break the mediocrity sin by destroying your expectations. So I'll give you an example. Google Slides has Gemini embedded in it, right? Amazing. I would expect then that I should be able to say, fix these 5 slides and give me like new images that are right for those slides or something like that. It can't do that. When I go into like make a prompt for like changing this slide, this slide might be about like the financials of a taco company or whatever. Instead, the suggested prompt in the box will be create an image of Cinque Terre at nighttime and blah, blah. And I'm like, sounds nice as like a break, but like not what I need for this slide at all, right? And so I think some of the issues with these like more embedded ones is that like the power that could come from that is they should have more context. They should know what I'm doing because they're in there with me, right? But they don't. And at least when I use like, if I use those same models out of context, I know I need to provide the context. So I'll upload an image, I'll upload a document. So that is like a big break of expectations. If you're going to put something in context and tell me you can do stuff, I expect that you can see all of my context and we'll take that into consideration. I think that's one of the sins that a lot of those tools are breaking. Yeah. Yeah.
Hold on, because I want the recording to be able to hear the questions. So thanks.
I'm a big user of Notion, and I find Notion AI actually going through that doesn't really violate many of those rules, especially what you just talked about, mediocrity.
Awesome.
It understands context. It can actually do what you do, co-create like databases.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you've used Notion AI in comment, but
I am just too much of a chaotic person to use something like Notion, and I don't organize my life that well. But yeah, no, I'll check it out. That sounds awesome.
Hi. My question is, I'm an adopter of AI. I love it. I use it for everything as much as I can. But I also feel like it's like obviously part of a hype and a bubble and something that's like expected in product design today. But like, my question is, do you have any insights on what products you think actually do not benefit from inputting AI and like would be better off without it?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I'll give you my weasel answer and then I'll give you my real answer. So my weasel answer is like, it depends on how you do it, right? Like I could sit here and say, oh, you shouldn't use it in this domain, but maybe it's just because no one's done it right yet. So that's my weasel answer. My real answer is like, there are certainly environments where I certainly don't want it, right? And this is just a personal opinion at this point, but like these AI toys for kids, no thank you. Like inappropriate in my view, doesn't actually solve a real problem. And I think that's like an interesting one to look at, right? Because like, would I let my kid sit and chat with an AI that's been designed for educational use? Maybe. Like if it's been designed well and I fully trust it and so on, I would. Would I give them like a toy? No, because it's like the point of what a toy is either to do imagination or to help form like connection or, you know, insert other like important human value here. Like I don't want an AI doing that. And so I think there's my combination of the answer is like the weasel answer is it depends on the implementation, how you do it. But yes, there certainly are certain domains where we shouldn't want AI there because if the point is things like human connection, then you're not getting that from an AI, right? It's by default not human.
So I have another question, semi-tangential to that, and kind of plays off your point of not just saying something's AI to make it popular.
Yeah.
I'm developing a product for a group of people that I know are going to be quite skeptical that AI can be beneficial to them.
Okay.
What are your favorite examples of companies that have built AI products for those markets? How did they market it to them initially, and it kind of reversed the trend in that market, if any?
That is a fantastic question.
And maybe I'll be the first one.
So yeah, so a company that took a bunch of skeptics about AI and turned them into non-skeptics. Oh, I wish I had a good answer to that. I don't have a good answer for it, but I'm going to have one next time for sure. Yeah, I mean, one thing I will say is that like a weaker answer to this question is like we've done adoption training. We have a case study working with Intuit actually, I believe, where we did this. And we had some people in that would classify themselves as skeptics. So we kind of asked a question at the start, and we asked this like quiz, like, would you say that like you know a lot? Would you say that you don't know a lot, but you're kind of skeptical, or you know a lot, but you're enthusiastic, whatever? So we had like 20-something% of people say that they were skeptics, and by the end, most of them were evangelizing. I would say what got them there was using it. I think that's the big difference. You actually see this in like the Pew Research, for example, when you break out like trust in AI by have they used it before, and particularly by like number of exposures and like how often they use it, you do see that. And so some of it is like fear of the unknown, right? is just kind of like, oh, I don't really know what this thing is. Everyone's saying it's like an AI, like super intelligence. That sounds super scary. And then you use it a few times and Siri tells you the wrong month, like, and you're like, oh, okay, I think we're all right for now. Yeah. There's 2, 3, and the third one there. Yeah.
So one of the primary sins for me with AI tools is how the sloth essentially that I get writing an email or feeling like just doing anything feels like such a huge chore these days.
Oh,
If the
okay.
AI, because the AI can sort of do it well, and I'm wondering how can we bridge that gap with AI tools to get people back doing higher quality work and finding enjoyment in doing high quality work rather than just reaching for the AI.
Okay, so there's kind of 2 parts to your question. There's one which is like the kind of AI makes everything so easy that like the idea of doing anything fully manually is like unappealing, right? I think that is true. I experienced it myself, like doing stuff like as you're talking about, like writing an email or like writing a first draft. I think the reasons to guard against it are exactly as you say. You should take ownership of your work, particularly obviously at work, but even like in your personal life and so on. Like you should be striving to like actually do these things. I think the evidence is not fully in, but I will be there's some suggestive evidence already, and it will be surprising to me if it doesn't pan out this way, which is that if you completely just rely on AI over time, your skills will atrophy. And so it's in your own interest to do it. And then I think like the way to try and view AI is like, you know, the Steve Jobs type metaphor of like the bicycle type thing. It's like should make you more efficient. You should be able to do things more quickly or like help you do things that you couldn't do otherwise, but you should be doing them. Like maybe like an example is like I can't code really. Like I know a little bit of like statistical programming, but I don't know how to write like in C or anything like that or Java, anything. All these tools give me the ability to make incredible prototypes. Now, should I then go out and say, like, I'm an engineer, I can build prototypes? Like, no. And also, it does give me this new skill, which is instead of like approaching an engineer at a company and just saying, oh, I want this, and here's like a 10-page text document, I can just say, actually, here's like my prototype. This is roughly what I'm aiming towards. If the code on the back end is spaghetti, don't worry about it. I'm just trying to show you what I want. And so trying to find use cases where it like accelerates what you can do and use that, I think, is ways to do it. And I think guarding against skill atrophy is just an incentive for everyone to make sure that you don't fully offload everything.
All right, after this question, I'm going to do 2 more.
Okay, so there's a lot of speculation about the future of AI. Just given your perspective, I'm wondering if you could speculate for us a little bit and share where you think AI in the landscape is headed.
In terms of like product design or just in general? Well, I did I did do some thinking over the break about like how AI is going to change like behavioral science and some of the research methods that we do, and I think that's applicable to any of us here that do like design research. So one of the most interesting papers I read over the break was like, right now, right, you see this sometimes in companies. You'll have a qual team who do like all qualitative research, you have a quant team, and then you try and put them in a room, and then they fight with each other, and they're like, qual's useless, and they're like, well, quant misses all the important details, and this is silly. And we all know that like the truth is like some blended middle, right? But I think like in behavioral science and in design research in general, we're now getting abilities to do like qual at scale. So there are these like automated interviewing agents that can like go out and do the interviews. They have a couple of cool features. One is that they can sound like really human. 2, when you disclose that they're AI, people are actually more likely to disclose like things that they might be sensitive about telling a human. So they may reduce bias. They may also introduce other ones in terms of the questions they ask. And they can do like branching logic. So, you know, your worry about an automated tool will be like, well, you can't probe in the same way that you can in qual. Well, these can. And then the response from a quant person will be like, okay, great, but like, so now I have 1,000 interviews and I'm going to do a thematic analysis on like, what's the point? But the truth is that when you're able to do that much qual, and then when you have AI tools that can actually take the huge corpus of text that it outputs and turn that into a statistical measure of different things, now you can run stats on qualitative insights, and that's different, right? So that's one big change. I think the other thing is like when we do UX research, think about a time, right, where you're asked, we need to come up with this new feature, and I want you to tell me what users think of it, and you have 2 weeks. Great. Like, how do you do that, right? You go and either build the sloppiest prototype you can in the world, or you like draw it on napkins and you say, like, imagine it did this, imagine it did that. AI and like lovable and prototyping tools are just going to change that game, right? Now we can build a way better prototype that's way closer to the final product, and you get way better insights out of the end. And it's cheap. Now you can have 3 variants, right? Now you can say, like, here's 1 variant, here's 2, here's 3. And now you're getting more insight about what works and why as well. So I think out of product experimentation with interactive prototypes is going to like explode this year. Yeah. I think you said 2 more, or okay, so 1, 2.
Yeah. So you touched upon it in the gluttony section where AIs kind of have like that thing where they ask you to move to another chat, or they say you ran out of credits, or please come back to converse at like a later time.
Yeah.
From a product design perspective and kind of, I guess, like the whole corporation as a whole, do you feel like these companies and these main platforms have done their due diligence to improve the clarity and the solutioning of those problems, of those like of those pitfalls? Because I've gone through ChatGPT, I've gone through Copilot recently, and they just said like, oh, you have 5 chats left, you're done, please move to a new chat. And then with ChatGPT, they go, oh, please talk back at 12 p.m., but you can bypass this by paying premium. And then with Gemini, I believe on a more like coding implementation basis, they're like, oh, we won't charge you, but you'll need to use your credit card.
Right.
You'll need to give us your credit card information, because if you go past a computation threshold, we're going to need to charge you.
Yep.
So I guess like all that in a nutshell is, how is product design done to solution for kind of these ambiguous problems?
Yeah, I think there's a right way and a wrong way to do it, right? Which is like, the wrong way to do it is like obscure token cost. Don't tell me how many tokens I have. Don't tell me how many tokens you estimate I'm going to use based on a given prompt, and then suddenly surprise me and try and get me to pay, right? That's like the way not to do it. Setting clear expectations about like roughly how many credits you might have. Like tokens, the cost is coming down all the time, but there is a cost, right? So you should pay like if you're going to use like a lot of these models. So I think that's one thing, is like it's about how it's done. And then there's like the thing of just like shutting users out. No, you should warn them first, I think. And then there's one more point I want to make here, which is like one of the biggest issues with LLMs today is like their level of context window, like the amount of context that they can take between either documents that you upload or like prompts that you give, basically the number of tokens that you're entering, seriously degrades the model quality. So I don't know what the number is anymore. A while ago, it was like something like 50,000 or something like that. And basically, as you enter more and more tokens, the ability for the LLM to hold all of this thing that you're telling it in its mind, it's like, oh my God, I don't know. And so actually, I think companies could do more on that front and say, stop chatting. Like, do move to a new chat window, actually, because this instance is becoming like buggy and terrible because you've got like 100 million tokens in here. Like, what are you doing? So I think like the time and the place matters, right? If you're trying to do it to upsell, you should do it cleanly, fairly, transparently. And then you should actually warn users if your model's going to degrade over a certain point. Yeah. I think definitely, like, they don't, if you're saying we have the best model in the world and then you talk to it too long and it like breaks, you're not setting the right expectation, right? And then on the pricing thing, like they just have like a raw financial incentive to get that right.
Yeah, actually, 2-part question. I'm going to cheat here. The first question, you talked about kids not using kind of like these AI kind of like toys.
Yeah.
Is there a sin in there where AI should either not be used for particular groups, or where AI should not be used for particular functions, right? Like we should still learn, or we still know very clearly how to communicate, how to write, how to kind of like speak, et cetera. So they shouldn't be taken over those. So that's my first kind of question. You showed a lot of AI for screens. How are you thinking about these deadly AI sins for voice, or even for AI physical kind of like AI products, like these robots, like Atlas. I don't know if you guys seen Boston Dynamics just came out with Atlas. They just shared it. It's the biggest inflection point, I think, of kind of like where we're going to see the kind of like the future of AI in physical form. So sorry, two different questions, but curious your thoughts on those.
Yeah, let's take the second one. So like the part about like Atlas and stuff is just like the plain answer is no, I didn't think about it. And like I guess a lot of the work that we do is in the like tech space. So no. I think this is also a thing about like behavioral science in general, I would say, is that like doing interventions in the physical world can have like way more impact sometimes, but they're way harder, and they're way harder to run like experiments with. And so as a result, we don't have like a good as evidence base. So I do also expect that to change over time, like with like VR getting like crazy good and like looking really realistic. Like our ability to put people in like virtual simulations and then do experiments will probably give us more information about how we can change choice architecture in the physical realm. But robots, no idea. What was the first one?
I guess.
Oh, voice and other modalities.
That, but also are there
domains.
Is there a sin around which user groups shouldn't be sort of
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know. Like my gut is telling me to say that like that's not for product designers to decide, at least solely. You have responsibility, and so you should think about those things. But that sounds more like a legal and moral question about like, do we want regulation on certain applications of AI, right? You already see this, right? And you have other laws that were not directly designed to handle AI that impact it, right? Like, so HIPAA law, for example, makes it very hard to do a lot or nearly anything with AI in a lot of different medical use cases. And so I think like society has to have discussions about, are the benefits that we're going to get from having like AI being able to do better medical diagnosis worth the trade-offs in terms of like privacy and so on. So yeah, I think product designers have a responsibility, but they shouldn't be like, it's a societal question that we should answer together.
All right. Well, thank you all for joining, and thank you, Karl, for your wonderful speech.
Yes, thanks.